I'm Chad Black. I'm a proud owner of a 93 Cobra. I have known about this car since probably 1993. A friend of mine who's since passed away, his dad bought this car brand new in 93. It's always kind of been a garage queen and always just sat at their house in the garage. There was no windows, nothing like that. So really not many people knew of this car. If it wouldn't have been for me being friends with his son, then I would have never have known about this car. So I've always just really been into Mustangs, and I always just kind of thought of Cobra as the pinnacle of the Mustangs, but I've never had one. So this is my first and only one. The story of how I obtained the car is I had told a friend of mine, Josh Kennedy, about this car, and we were at a car meet, and Josh mentioned it in front of a group of guys of, if I could get Chad to show me where this where he thinks this low mile Cobra is. That's what he said. And I was like, Josh, there's no thinking, dude. Like, I know where this car is at. And so 2 weeks went by. I get a text from Josh. Josh says, hey, is the people that own the Cobra's last name? And I'm like, my stomach dropped. I was like, no way. Then immediately, like, he sends me another text message, and he was like, listen, like, I'm not gonna let a car come in between friends. Like, I'm not the one, like, really looking for it, but I'd kind of like to have it too, if you don't want it. So I ended up getting on the phone with my wife, Melissa, and I said, you know what, I screwed up. She's like, what do you mean you screwed up? I said, I was running my mouth about the Cobra, and now they found out where it's at. She's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I'm calling the owners right now. So I called the owners, and they, of course, remembered me because I was friends with their son. And I made a date to come out there and look at the car, and that was right in the middle of COVID, like right in the height of it. And when I spoke to him on the phone, he said, when you get here, I'll open up the garage and you can go in and look at it. I was like, okay. Kind of figured that, he was scared of maybe getting sick or, whatever. Everybody at that point was scared to death. Nobody knew what they were doing. So when I get there, the car's actually backed out of the garage and it's sitting in the driveway. And my wife, Melissa, was like, oh, shoot. And I'm like, what? She's like, you're not leaving here without it, are you? And I was like, well, let's hope not. So I ended up working out a deal with him, and it took a week or so. He had all the original paperwork to the car, window sticker and all that stuff was all locked up in a safety deposit box. So he was getting all that gathered up. I was getting monies in order, to make it happen. And so on the day that I went to go pick the car up, the gentleman that owned the car is standing in the kitchen, and he's got a paper towel in his hand. And his eyes are like watering. And I was like, oh no, man, I'm not making you cry, am I? And he was like, oh no, I've been mowing the grass and it's just my allergies are acting up. And I'm thinking in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, this guy's weeping over losing this car that he has been the caretaker of since it was brand new. So got the car home, and it's a low mile car. It's a sub 20,000 mile car. The only thing that's ever been done to this car, besides changing oil, stuff like that, is he's changed the battery and the tires have been changed. Other than that, it's 100% bone stock. I've decided to keep it bone stock because, well, I mean, I guess it'll only be original once, But if you really want to know the real reason why is the value. I feel that if I start swapping parts on this thing, it's going to crush the value of the car. I bought it for the love of it, but I sold the idea to my wife as, hey, this is an investment that we're making here with this car, you know, and I'll keep it pristine, and maybe this will make me more money than the 401k later on down the road. One memory with this car is my wife and I were going to it was like a cruise in. A couple of guys on Harleys pulled up in behind us at a light. And I could see him in the rearview mirror because I'm so nervous to even drive this car half the flipping time because, I don't know, door dings or rock chips. It's like, oh, don't hurt my baby. Like, you know, it makes me a nervous wreck to really drive this car sometimes. So I'm looking in the rearview mirror at the guys, and I can see them talking about the car. So light turns green. I don't even pull out like an idiot. I just take out normal. And one of the dudes on the bikes, man, goes in between me and another car on a 2-lane road and like almost takes off the mirror. Or if I would have clipped the dude, I mean, it may have even killed him. I don't know. But then I was like, you know, thought, maybe I should fight this guy. And then I thought, no, because I'm not going to fight all his buddies. So I just left it alone. But I was freaking boiling inside. I'm like, man, how stupid can you be? Like rolling in between cars like that. Like, I mean, I'm sure he probably doesn't understand maybe what the value is, but still, it was just really stupid. So what really started my passion with Mustangs, and I guess probably really the Fox bodies, is when I was in high school, some friends of mine, they had them. And running around in them, I was like, man, just the sound, you know. One of the friends of mine, he had his straight pipe, so it was like obscenely loud, and which was cool because it turned heads. But just the feeling of being in those cars and just the feeling the torque, and I don't know, it was just something I couldn't get out of my head. So right after I got out of high school, actually when I was in high school, I did have a Fox body, but it was a Thunderbird Turbo Coupe. So not really what people think of as a Fox body, but it is. It's on the platform. And so probably 18-ish, I think I got my first Mustang. It was a 88 LX 5-liter. It was automatic. I know I wanted the stick shift too, but hey, it was a pretty car, and you know, it was there. The timing was right, the price was right, so I picked it up. Since then, you know, I think I've maybe owned 8 to 9 in total Mustangs, different years, but pretty much they've all been Fox bodies. I had one New Edge, and it was a convertible, but other than that, they've all been Foxes. So a couple things that makes this, I guess, different than the GT, let's say, of 93 was they had different heads, different intake. The gear in the rear end was a little lower. They did not have cruise control on any of them. So pretty much if you're looking at one, you can look right in the driver's side window, and if you see cruise control on the steering wheel, chances are it's not a real Cobra. The badges on the fender, or the Cobra badges on the fender, when Ford was doing the tooling, they only made one mold. So the emblems face opposite directions. Cobras after that, they all faced, I believe, toward the front. But on this one, you know, one's going one way and the other one is looking the other direction. This car was actually purchased at a local dealership. Now, the dealership is only maybe 15 miles from my house. They were a SVT dealer in the 90s, and they were allotted 93 Cobras. This is one of those two. It's number 1305 is the production number. Actually, I even have a handwritten receipt where the gentleman that I got the car from put, I think it was 500. It may have even been something as small as like 200 bucks down on this car to hold it in December of 1992. This car has the cloth opal interior. It's a rear defrost sunroof car, cassette deck, and that's pretty much the only options that it has. So I'd mentioned before that I'm going to leave this car stock. I'm not going to touch it. However, I do have a 93 GT. It's a reef two-tone car. I've been acquiring parts for it. I have a V1 Vortex supercharger on the shelf, different intake, and I don't know, some odd and end parts. They haven't made their way to the car yet, so if you'd like to follow me to see how that build goes, 304 Fox SVT is my Instagram name. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up.